Welcome back to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. With me today, second time guest on the ATO podcast, Mr. Stephen Turnbull out of Utica, New York, owner of T5 Insurance. Super excited for Stephen to have him on today. He just passed his 1 year mark with T5 Insurance, co-host of the Scratch Agency podcast. If you haven't checked that out, you have to check it out. He and Sean Fitzgerald are just putting out outstanding content, especially for any Scratch agents on there, all relatable material. So Stephen, thank you for being on the show.
Brad, how are you, sir? I appreciate you having me back. Thanks a lot.
I'm doing great, man. Congratulations.
Thank
Year
you.
2 off and running.
Off and running.
Yeah.
We're sprinting. Year 2 feels like year 20, but that's okay. It's all relative at this point, right?
For those that don't know you, why don't you just give us the cliff notes of your insurance background and bring us up to date?
Yeah, sure. Well, Brad, thanks again for having me. Love what you're doing with the ATO podcast. So just keep that moving and shaking. But
Thank you.
My name's Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance in Utica, New York. No, that is not near Sean Fitzgerald down near New York City. We are north. There is such thing as upstate New York. So we're about right dead center in the state in Utica. Started the Scratch Agency May 13th of 2022. And so we are, like we said, sprinting through year 2 here on our way to learn more and figure it all out. We are primarily personal lines at this point, doing business fairly remotely, but with a lot of community touches and community feel. So again, look forward to be back on the podcast and talking more.
Yeah. So let's talk about what has, I've kept in touch with you a little bit over the past year. Tell us as much as you want, cry if you have to, about what that first year has been like.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's kind of hard to put into words, to be honest with you. There's so much that goes into it. And, Brad, you and I were talking before we started recording that it's okay to just say it's hard, right? It's hard and it's all good at the same time.
Yeah.
If you went back 13 months ago and told me some of the opportunities, some of the successes, some of the failures that have happened over the last 12 months, I would have thought you were crazy, and then probably asked what you were on and then took some of it. But it's been great. I mean, if I look back, we've had an incredible year. Made an offer on 3 agencies, so we can dive into that, which has been exciting.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd be able to do something like that. All of these things that you kind of figure out as you go. The biggest thing I keep telling myself is the only time to figure it out is when you need to figure it out. And when you're starting a Scratch agency, you have to figure it out, especially if it's just you, right? There's no boss to ask. There's no corporate to call. You got to just figure these things out. So it's really been just putting my head down, writing business, working on the processes, procedures, which is a struggle because you got to write business and you got to service and you got to do all that. And so it's been incredible, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. The last year has been super humbling. It's been super rewarding. And I'm so glad that I did what I did.
So looking back when you were thinking about doing this, you were in your family's agency previously.
Yep.
And there was a time when you're thinking, you went through a process of, I think I'm going to start my own and I want to do it this way. And this is what it'll be like if I start my own. Then you go do it and you experience your first year. How does that differ from what you thought it would be to what the actual first year was?
Yeah. I think it's hard to think of what it could be when you're just so unsure, right? I was in a family agency. I was still doing a lot of my own servicing and producing and in the marketing rep meetings and all of these things as an owner would be, but didn't have the ownership responsibilities that I do now as far as being the solely owner, right? So it's such an interesting question because I can't really think of what my expectations were. Okay. I think it was so much of like, hey, we're doing this. And it was kind of there's no time to really think about that. We just got to do what we have to do and take it day by day. And, it was just, I would say, deciding to do it a year ago or whatever it was just kind of a light switch thought that's, for whatever reason I got, it's like, why not you and why not now?
Like it. So you referenced in your most recent podcast that actually came out today that I think the title was, this is hard. And you and Sean just got into, what the difficulties are, which we don't know from the outside looking in until you get going on it. What are the kind of the top things that have made this transition so difficult for you? Is it financial? Is it, learning it all? Is it doing it alone? What sorts of things have been really the most difficult for you?
So I think it's all of it. It's financial. I mean, I left my previous agency where I was making decent money and, had that security 4 months before my wedding. So, a lot of people that just kind of didn't understand said, why don't you just wait? Why not wait until, the wedding's over? Why not wait until whatever? And it's like, with that mentality, like I said, it was just a light switch of like, I've been thinking about this and certain things happen where it's like, it has to be now. Right. So I'm not going to sit here. I'll be completely transparent. Financially, it was very hard.
Yeah.
My wife has a good paying job, but we were also having a large wedding coming up, and we know those aren't cheap. And it wasn't necessarily also something that I kind of planned for over the last 2 to 3 years where I could set money aside. So again, that was kind of something, my wife and I talk all the time about like, man, I can't believe we've kind of made it this far with how we have, like, because you look back and like, oh, okay, you're going to not have an income for a year or whatever you think that metric is for whatever your situation is. And it's like, man, how are we going to do that? But you figure it out. One of the hardest things for me is just being just me.
Yeah.
I am such a team player. And, you reference Sean Fitzgerald in our podcast, but him and I probably talk on the phone 8 times a day, and I'm not exaggerating. Or just like, hey, man, this customer just called and you wouldn't believe what they said, or just a question on something. And so I think being able to have that relationship and other relationships I've made, like with people like yourself and just scratch agency owners that understand have been really beneficial for me, because when it's just you working in the trenches 12, 14 hours a day and it's just you and there's no, team member that's understanding where you're at or where you want to go, or what your day was like or whatever, that's been the biggest challenge for me.
You're right. It's a lonely place.
It's lonely, especially when you're in a basement office in downtown Utica with no windows. It gets even lonelier down here.
But it does help. And I know that you've gotten into this so much of reaching out to this vast network, that you have, which is everything. And I think you and I have talked about it. So many people have referenced it before. For me, and it was AOA. You thought you were alone. You didn't know there was others out there, or at least you didn't have connection to them. Mm-hmm. So I know you've taken full advantage of that, of using that network and learning and growing with other agents out there.
Yeah, it's been incredible. I mean, I would not be owning an agency today, having this conversation with you, if it wasn't for the relationships that I made and kind of putting myself out there and looking for that. I mean, Mike Crowley, I've talked about him a lot on podcasts, but he's my insurance older brother, and he's only about a 40-minute car ride down the road. And, he walked me through a lot of some of the concerns I was having in my previous agency, and then he walked me through what it was like to run an agency, and then, helped me with the introductions to the big I to get started and get in front of the right people to make sure that I was setting up the agency right, and all the fun stuff we got in the state of New York here and all that stuff. So, there's so many people that have been, in even just a short 12 months, a part of this journey already, that if it was just me trying to figure it out, I don't think I would have been able to do it.
And part of it is you're putting yourself out there, and you are asking, which I think that's where a lot of people don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to message someone on LinkedIn, or on Facebook. People are willing to help and to answer a question. They know what we went through. We anybody who's went through it, I love to help, and I don't have as vast a knowledge as so many other agents out there, but I have a really good base knowledge of this business and being a
Yep.
business owner. So, don't be afraid to ask and put yourself out there. You're only
Right.
going to benefit from it.
Yep. Yeah.
Worst thing that happens is they don't respond.
Yep.
So part of your growth here, now you're hiring your first staff person. You've recently hired a VA.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what that process is like,
Sure.
what you're going to have them doing, and how you prepared
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah. So that's been exciting. Hired a VA out of India. And man, one of the things I always told myself was like, you hear it from everybody, hire before you think you need to. And that's all good and great unless you're starting a scratch agency and you have no renewals and no money. Right. So I always told myself, you got to get to the first year. You got to get to the first year. Honestly, I probably should have done it about 5 months ago, because now it's an interesting thing. And this is not, of course, the first place you've heard it, but now I hired because I needed help. But now I'm taking my time where I needed help and training my VA, which she's fantastic, and it's been a great relationship. But I actually brought her on part-time, and after it was 20 hours a week. And after the first week, I was like, hey, do you want to go full-time? Like it was just incredible. Like this task of, I need you to go into this carrier and just grab this policy and send it to me or whatever. And like, bam, no problem. Like, and I've been doing that all over Loom videos. And so it's been good. I would, I'm following, big cheerleader for Billy Williams. He's helped me out a ton. Just in kind of, again, being that mentor and like with what you don't know about the unknown, right? So he's got a great program that helps you of how to implement VAs into your agency and the step-by-steps of that. So I'm staying right on track with that. And it's only, after hearing me talk about this, you probably think it's been a couple months. It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
3 weeks.
It's been great.
3 weeks, you already have her full time. So what exactly is she doing for you?
Well, I got to tell you a funny story that answers your question. But one of the first things, I get a regional carrier that we have only in New York. They send policy documents. They send the full policy to our office. It drives me nuts. The only reason I have to go to the post office if I have to send it. But what happens is I'll get the policy document. Now I go in and just PDF it off of the site and email it to the client, right? So I said, that is, because we write a lot with that carrier. I said, that's a great task that I'm going to teach her how to do. And so I did the Loom video. Here's how you do it. Within 5 minutes, she watched the Loom video and sent me the email. And Brad, I can't tell you the adrenaline I got from having someone else send me something and say, like, here's something, like someone else is in there doing this besides me, myself, and I. I'm like, this is awesome. Could you just forward that one more time? Because that felt amazing. But that's the kind of things that she's doing. So she's doing back end stuff. She's doing some social medias. She has some social media background. So she's creating some of my my Canva post. So she's doing like 3 posts a week for social media, like Google reviews or different things like that that we put out. And now I'm starting to get her into the systems to learn how to quote. So if I can get her, she's got some personal stuff going on at home that she can't come on full time for a couple of weeks, but she's interested in coming on full time. So once that happens, if I can get her into the quoting system and everything, that's going to be a huge help for me, because that's
huge.
That's my pain point right now is the back end task that I've very much built my brand, if you will, on community. And the last year I've put a lot of that aside. And so I gotta get back out there and be more involved in those things. And so having her be able to do that will help me do that.
Quoting is going to be massive. I mean, massive. So yeah, I would double down on the training for that, get her up to speed as quick as possible, because that's gonna create a lot of time for you.
And it's incredible. Like one Loom video and good to go. It's like, it's just like this one system, that one regional company I'm talking about, they're not in the radar, but we do their home rate's great, and we do a lot of first time home buyers and stuff. So we do a lot with them. But I taught her how to go in that system, and she's done like 9 or 10 at this point. No errors, no issues. Here it is, quick turnaround. So that's been great.
Yeah, that's huge. And then I just with mine, I'm fortunate to have the VA company do the training for this, but training in to do video editing. I have somebody, a marketing person at my company doing video editing now, and now my VA is going to be doing it, which is great for her because we have her doing a lot of those mundane tasks,
Yep.
quoting, policy changes, mortgage verifications. So to do something a little bit more on the creative side,
Yeah.
that helps her kind of break it up for her a little bit too, and it's helpful. And it's the things that most of these VAs can do. The list is so long
Yeah.
and so helpful. So don't be afraid to introduce new things as you go. Most of them love it. They want to get it done. They want to they want to get it done well. Man, I'm excited for you. I think that's awesome that you realized right away that you had 20 hours and you're like, oh my God, I need 40.
Yeah.
So you must be doing well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an incredible experience. So, and I think just like you got to test it out. I've talked to a lot of people and kind of picked their brain. I was so back and forth. I'm like, what's my first hire going to be?
Yeah.
And like, I just can't afford like somebody in house right now. Now I could probably afford them, but like, I want to be able to pay someone where like they're going to, I'm going to get a good person that's going to see the vision and I can draw it out for them and all of that. And it just came down to like, the VA option was the only thing I could afford and I needed help. And it's worked out really well. I mean, again, that's one of those things that if you told me a couple of years ago, I would have thought you were crazy, but it's going really well.
And you don't look at it this way, but from the outside looking in, this is a huge something you're learning as a business owner, taking on your first employee.
Well, and here's what it's doing. It's forcing me to do all those processes
Correct.
and procedures that I said I've got to do at some point. Well, guess what? Now is some point.
Yeah.
And so she's working right now noon to 4 my time. And I'm finding myself at like 11 o'clock, like, okay, what's today going to be? And it's forcing me to create these things or stay up late at night and create something for her to do tomorrow or do a task and record it and get all of that ready for her to look at the next day. So it's forcing me to do that. And now I've got that library, whether it's a VA, an in-house person, that's the next, whatever that looks like. I'm getting that, video library set up. I've got so much stuff already in those short 3 weeks that those are things that it's forced me to do because I have to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Not just being me anymore.
Yeah. Like you said, when number 2 comes on and you're going to be better because you already have a template for it. First of all, you already have a library to work off of.
Yep.
And you're going to keep adding to it. And that's how you just, keep getting better. It's exciting.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little. You just mentioned reference, which I wasn't aware of, some potential acquisitions.
Yeah. That's been interesting. I think just like starting an agency, you always kind of look at these things like big mountains to climb. And, there's starting an agency is a big mountain, trust me, but you can do it. And so acquisition, I love the idea of growing by acquisition. I'm the youngest agency owner in this area by maybe 30 years, and there's opportunity. And so I've just casted my net and had a conversation. So I, was talking with someone at the Big Eye and they were talking about so-and-so was for sale or something like that. And I just mentioned that, I just said, I'm interested in talking to people about buying agencies. I'm interested in having that conversation anytime. At the end of the day, whatever the conversation is, and the opportunities have come my way from that. So there was one of them that was I outreach to. And so I'm in the process of actually talking to number 4. But my first 3 I struck out on, and it just came down to price. And, I had to value my time of where I was at with T5. One, for example, was a smaller book that was in the town over, but they were all paper, no management system. The principal that passed away was the only licensed person. Like there was all these roadblocks where I had to, and for an agency that's maybe established and has 10 people, they could pay a little bit more because they can go in and put their people there. But if it's just me, myself, and I had to value what that was. So, but I tell you, at the end of the day, like, the cliche saying, if you're always learning something, no matter what, and failing forward, if you call it a failure, which I don't, I learned so much. And now it's like on this 4th one that I'm in the middle of having conversations about, I know exactly what I got to look for, whereas the first one, it was like,
Yeah.
got on a call with Billy Williams, like, all right, what do I do here? What do I look for? And like now I'm doing that. So it's been interesting. I think, there's so much M&A out there with the bigger guys and the corporations, but I still think there's an interesting market for people that are worried about their clients, worried about their staff
100%.
and their issue. They're still interested in getting out and enjoying retirement and enjoying what they've built. But they're also they're not just worried about what the multiple is or what the bottom line is going to be. They want to make sure that Mary that's worked for them for 20 years is going to be taken care of for the next 10 years that she wants to work, or their client that's been with them for 4 generations is whatever. So I think in all 4 of my cases, all 4 of the discussions I've had over the last 12 months, they've all been that situation. So it's been interesting. And again, at the end of the day, I'm just casting my net and saying, yeah, I'm interested in having a conversation. And that's kind of all it's some of them were like, oh, I'm not really interested in this one for X, Y, and Z reason. But it's been, you talk about like failing forward. And again, I hate using that because I don't think I failed by not getting it. I learned so much.
No. Yeah. What an educational process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at from where you went to the first one that you discussed to where you went on the, on the third or the fourth. So much more. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
What if you're, you're considering and, ABC agency says, yeah, I'm interested in, discussing it. What kind of things are you looking for?
Call Billy Williams and whatever he says to do. No, I mean, you obviously like the you want the P&L and you want like that and finding out what type of contracts they're under, the makeup of their staff, the carriers, different things like that. So from my standpoint, I think I'm maybe looking at things a little differently than maybe an established agency. I'm looking at what staff am I going to be able to bring on, right? What now, if I have an acquisition and I purchase an agency that has 3 staff, now all of a sudden I've got staff people, and now I can go. Now I can start sprinting faster because I'm not doing the quoting, I'm not doing the binding, all of those things, whatever, now I can run. So I think in each case, it's different for what you're looking at, but the generic stuff, you want to make sure the business is profitable, all that. I don't feel I'm anywhere near an expert or anything at all.
No.
To at least talk about that. So I don't want to say much more because I don't feel I'm,
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No.
I asked more because, we've talked about before without even knowing, I was a producer in this agency before I bought it out.
Sure.
And when I bought it out, I had zero idea how to value it, what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't at that time have much of a network to bounce off of. What sort of things should I be looking for?
Well, so let's put this in full circle. What we were just talking about starting an agency. What's the first thing that I said I found very success in? Finding a mentor, finding people that I could bounce ideas off of. I mean, if you're looking at buying books, that's what I did. I called everybody in my circle, like, have you bought a book? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Okay. You bought it. You did this way. I mean, there was a guy that is in one of my accountability groups that bought a book in a different state. We talked about that. And like, from the first time I made a phone call about acquiring for an agency, I never thought about how long is the phone contract.
Yeah.
So if they're under a 10-year phone contract and you can just transfer it over to your phone, but then you don't find that out till after the sale. I mean, those are things that can add up. And so like, that's why I said Billy Williams has been a huge help, having those resources, but just simply reaching out to other people, putting in the IOA group. Hey, I'm looking to buy a book. Can anybody help me that's done this? Put yourself out there, because the potential of what could happen if you didn't do that, if you bought a book and didn't know some things that were under the hood that maybe if you just asked the right questions you would have found out. And like I said, I'm really hopeful that the number 4 is the lucky charm and not number 3, like they always say. But if not, I've learned so much already, and I'm learning more and more each process.
Time. Maybe it doesn't happen till number 10,
right?
But by the time you get there, the familiar with it, the more questions you have, the more educate yourself, you're going to be so much more familiar with it.
Yeah. Yep. I was talking to Brett Young, and he was saying that when they bought their first book, that he must have looked at 100 of them.
Yeah.
So it's just like it's an educational piece every step of the way.
And you're in no hurry.
Yeah.
So you might as well find a good fit.
Yep.
And I love it. I love
that,
it.
and one last comment on this, because I think it's interesting, is the reason that I had success with in all three of so far, I've gotten down to like the last two options.
Oh.
And I know I wasn't the most money. I'm not even taking a paycheck yet. I know I'm not the most money, right?
Yeah.
I'm not offering all these multiples, but I made it personal, and I recorded a video of myself and sent it to the families and said, "Here's who I am." And I edited a video of a picture of me and my wife on our wedding day, and this is what we're building, and this is what it would mean to be able to take over your legacy. I made it personal, besides just saying it's worth 3x, throw a number and see if it sticks. And
Yeah.
every single time I got a response back of, "Sorry, we went this different direction, but the owner wanted me to say they very much appreciate your style of the offer," yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So I think that was super helpful in just like actually taking the time to like research the family, research the agency, research the area, whatever it might be, and like make it personal and think, if you're on that other side of the table, like, what do you want to hear? Like, what's like, do you just want to hear, okay, this guy offered 3x? Or do you want to hear like they're excited about this opportunity because A, B, and C? So I think that makes a big difference as well.
It does make a big difference. The values, where you're at, how you've branded yourself as a community agency. I think there absolutely is opportunity out there, and that does care to a lot. That does matter to a lot of owners.
And don't do it with a Loom video, because you'll get a notification every time they open it, and then just won't be able to sleep. Why are they opening it 10 times?
How are you securing financing for that? I mean, have you gotten there, or?
I haven't really gotten to that point.
Okay.
Two of them, we're going to be the seller holding the note.
Okay.
And I've got a good relationship with my local banker and just the people at my local bank I've got a good relationship with. So I haven't gotten to the point where I had to like officially apply or anything, you know?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I've had conversations with bankers of here's the deal that's in front of me. Here's what's going to be my offer. What should I be prepared for? And so, you know, we've had, and that's the thing, like, I'm just casting my net.
Yeah.
And if it works out, that's like, hey, sorry, I can't get the financing. Who knows? Maybe they'll say, well, we really want this to make it happen. How can we make it happen? Set up a seller financing deal or whatever. I'm just casting my net and trying to learn as much as I can about the potentials of buying an agency. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, great. So
yeah.
I haven't really gotten that far to say much about the financing.
Yeah. Year 2 with T5. What have you envisioned you want year 2 to look like? How do you grow? You know, what do you got planned for year 2? Where do you want to be?
That's a great question. You want to plan it right now? Because I haven't planned it. You got a piece of paper?
I do.
No, I mean, it's definitely not the right answer, because you got to be thinking of those things. You know, one of my faults, I think, is I know a lot about where I want to be at year 5, 10, 15, 20, but maybe not year 2. And I think it's important to try to break that down. I just want to kind of continue to do what we're doing. Like I feel really good about the fact that June so far June is our 13th month. Mm-hmm. And June has been a really, really good month. We're recording this on June 6th. And I feel good about that because I didn't have a non-compete for my agency, so I was able to take some of my customers over. So I've always had the fear in the back of my mind that, like, okay, when my customer base that I've grown over the last 6 years dries up, like, you know, what's going to happen? But it's just been consistency. I've gotten leads off of social media, doing different things in the community, doing kind of the same things. And I think it's like the doubt in my mind is always there of the what if. But I'm a very visual person. So I have things all over my office of like, you know, motivational quotes and stuff like that. So I just always try to change that what if to like, why not you? Right. So in year 2, I just want to continue to build. Right. I know this is going to take a while, and I'm the most impatient person you'll probably meet. So that's also that's probably what I should have said when you asked me what my biggest flaw has been over the last year, my biggest struggle. I'm super impatient. But just kind of trusting the process, getting that VA going with some things. Maybe hopefully we have a merger, which would be fantastic. Mm-hmm. And, you know, allow us to move maybe further on to where we would take if we were just doing this organically. But either way, it's been incredible. I want to build a type of agency that just has the fear of missing out. like the type of agency where the social media is like so strong that people are like, man, I want to do business with you. And I've always thought that since I developed T5 and thought about it and planned it. And I had it, one of my clients that I brought over from my previous agency, he was like, man, I'm finally in the boat. And he was like excited, and I'm sitting there like, okay, we're doing something good here then.
That's
because
branding.
he was excited to now be a part of T5.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's a friend and he wants to support me, and that's all great. But at the end of the day, if we boil that down, he's excited to move his insurance somewhere.
Yeah.
And so if I can continue to just maximize on that and pour that into the culture as I bring on staff of whatever that looks like, whether it's a merger and I bring on 5 people, or I just bring on my next person organically, and just create that fear of missing out, create the educational sales strategy, because that's very much me. I'm not a cold call guy. I'm not out here telling you that I'm the best as I can do it the cheapest and I'm the only one that you're going to have the best experience with. None of that. It's just here's the solution, here's your education on what you need, and here's how we can help. And that seemed to work out so far. So I don't know if that's generally the answer you were looking for, but just kind of continue to what we've been doing over year one. Hopefully with this VA, and hopefully maybe with a staff person down the road, I'll be able to just maximize on that more and more. Like I said, with the community thing, with the T5 party, for 1 year, we had like a cocktail hour here downtown in Utica, but we did a food drive and we filled my pickup truck to the brim with food.
Wow.
And brought it down to the local veterans food drive pantry. So like if we can do 2 pickup trucks next year and 3 the year after, and just maximize on that stuff. And that's like the impact that I want to make with what we're doing here. Oh, and by the way, sell insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's working. I think, we'll touch on, I think the quality of people that you're bringing into your agency from a customer base. You look at, your Google reviews of 100 in 1 year is incredible. And I think that speaks to the quality of people that you have. Everybody who knows, who tries, and most of us do, it's hard to get reviews. And a lot of time it's timing. And I haven't even asked, we haven't discussed, how you're getting them. I'm assuming you're asking. And that's our best way. We have a couple automations, but the best way, the most successful way for us to get reviews is to ask. So the fact that there's already been 100 people, that have left you a 5-star review speaks to the impression that you're leaving on them, and the quality of person and the quality of job that you're doing. So
yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I posted that little win in the IOA group, and after I posted it, I was kind of afraid of, well, how are you doing this? Because it's really just asking. And it's interesting because a lot of people from that post like DM'd me or like, what's your process and this and that. And through my CRM, I have an automated thing that goes out about a review. I don't think I've ever got one off of my automation. I do not think I've gotten one review off of my automation. And for me, and I guess I just kind of realized this after doing this post and having so many people ask me, where I had to force myself to find the answer. I think it's just hitting the iron while it's hot. So I woke up to an email this morning. I had a homeowner that I sent a binder to back in mid-May, and they're like, hey, my lender can't find the binder. I thought we were all good. They were going into a panic because they thought they didn't have insurance, right? They don't know what they don't know. And I said, hey, I got it taken care of. Late last night, I was working. I sent it to him within 5 minutes, and he like responded back, was like, during this whole process, you've been the number one person that has just been like getting things done and communicating to me. And I so much appreciate that. I don't know what I'm getting into with this house, yada, yada. And I reply back, thank you very much. I appreciate those great words. Hey, if you could do me a favor. Yeah. Could you click here, hyperlink it to your Google page? It'll take you 5 minutes to share your experience. And then he goes on and do it. And so it's, instead of just like, when he's getting out of bed at 7:30 in the morning, he gets an automated message that says, thanks for being our client, and then deletes it. It's trying to hit those points of when they're satisfied, or when they tell me that they're happy with either the experience or the customer service they've gotten, or whatever it is. So, and one of the coolest things about that, Brad, is like people will leave like a paragraph on there. Yeah. And that's all of our reviews are kind of just exactly about their experience. So And I mean, it's starting to pay out. I probably get 2 to 3 calls off of Google a week.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. Great. Oh,
that's
the
been
reviews
good.
are huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's huge. And I hate to sound like it's really just ask. Like when they say thank you so much for helping us, that claim was fantastic. Would you mind leaving that Google review and just sharing your experience, because that helps people that are looking for a similar
Yeah.
solution, So that's what's worked well with that. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, the reviews are unbelievable. I can't tell you how many times, I've heard that well, we called you because of your reviews,
Yep.
that they've been shopping and they've looked at it. We've been fortunate to have some of our I'll run some Google ads. Took a long time, but we're starting to get some really, really good results, and these people are already shopping as it is. And so they'll check you out a little bit, and when they see that there's however many 5-star reviews, it's an easy
Well, it's just like,
choice.
just like we were talking a little bit before about the buying an agency. Put yourself on the other side of the table. What does everybody do when they go to look at an Amazon product? They look for an Amazon product, and there's 18 options of the exact same thing. What do? You look at the reviews.
Yeah.
And you trust 15,416 strangers that say it's fantastic, and you buy it, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the same thing. Like in my local area, if I look at it, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but like the other competing agencies, have 10, 15, 20, maybe they're 3.5 stars total or whatever. And then you scroll through and you see 100 5-star reviews. You're at least going to give them an at bat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You combine that with your branding that you're doing, and you look like a pretty strong option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
Fake it till you make it. So I'm like, it's worked for the first year. So
what sorts of things, amongst everything else that you have going on, what sorts of things are you working on for your professional development? How are you making Stephen better as a business owner?
Man, just to say it again, like the coaching with Billy Williams has been really helpful with all that. I think it's just putting myself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
Which is starting an agency.
Yeah.
But putting myself out there, I try to have a coffee meeting locally with one stranger a week. And
Nice.
that could be a big CEO of some company that I bump into at a networking event, or it can be someone in my B&I group that I just want to get to know better. And I'm just always trying to connect people, because you got to remember, when you ask me what were your challenges over this year, we could probably do a 5-part episode on that. But one of the challenges for me was I left last name insurance agency, right?
Yeah.
So this last year has been a complete rebrand of who Stephen Turnbull is.
Yeah.
So I still go to events for the chamber. I still go to whatever Rotary events, and they still think I'm with the family agency, and I kind of have to have that conversation and, hand in my card, show them the brand. And so, there's been some of that, but from a professional development standpoint, I just like remind myself to keep putting myself in uncomfortable situations, get on that board. And again, this is just from the community sense that I attack, of show up to those events and, introduce yourself to people, reach out to people for lunch, whatever it is. And that's been paying off. It's just amazing when you get yourself out there and then realize how much opportunity is truly out there. Right. You get this big time CEO, and then they say, hey, you want to take a look at my personal stuff? And they've got 2550 with Geico. It's like, what's going on here? And you think they're with, the pristine agency down the road, but people don't know what they don't know. So just putting yourself out there from a professional development standpoint has been, I think, something that's worked well for me.
Yeah, 100%. Continuing to network, and you don't know who you're going to learn from or get nuggets from. No. And that's something you are doing in spades, is putting yourself out there. You're only going to have experience growth.
Yeah. Yep.
And that is something I asked that question because that's something that I didn't do, was intentionally work on my professional development for years.
Yeah.
Didn't read any books. When really wasn't any podcasts, but I was just, in the weeds of my business and not acting like a business owner.
Right.
And I was acting like an insurance agent that so happened to own a business,
Mm-hmm.
and it did stunt my growth
Yeah.
until I got into reading books and networking. Man, then I felt like I started to grow like crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that.
But
Go ahead.
but all that comes down to is putting yourself in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it.
Agreed.
Like, and so cliche, but there's no growth in the comfort zone. Like, we all know
No.
that, but it's so true. Like volunteer for X organization that you don't know anybody at. Show up at whatever event that you've never heard of before, or call up the CEO and see if they'll get to coffee with you and tell them you want to pick their brain. Call another insurance person that you see on social media that you want to talk to and pick their brain. Like, if you don't do those things, it's going to be a lot harder to kind of get to where you want to be, at least in the standpoint of what I think.
Agreed. How do you give me an idea? What does your average day look like? How are you spending your time?
There's an emoji if you go to your iPhone and type in gorilla going in circles that Sean and I send to each other on a daily basis. Just a gorilla in the zoo just going in circles. Yeah, that's pretty much what it looks like at T5 every day.
Yeah.
Man, my day, it's all over the place. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
I struggle with the time blocking thing, although
Yeah.
I make an attempt. So I swing the bat, but I might not hit the ball every time there. I do get up early. I go to the gym in the morning, get up about 4:30, and so I do the early thing and try to get some emails caught up and stuff in the morning, and then I am on a lot of community boards, so a lot of those meetings are lunchtime board meetings, so that kind of cuts up the day a little bit. And then some networking events in the afternoon and evening. So but this last year, like I said in the beginning when we started, I put a lot of those things aside because it's just been a lot of computer time of just getting it done, getting the quotes done, getting the follow-ups, and now it's like, oof, man, with the renewals coming in and the rate increases, and it's like I'm just getting my first wave of renewals and trying to figure out how to navigate that. So every day is different, but it's just it depends day to day.
Yeah.
I'd love to give you a better answer, but there's nights where it's like, hey, I got 4 quotes to do. I'm not going to bed until this is done. And that's, you're up till 1 o'clock in the morning getting it done and up the next morning early to get it done. And that's another struggle is like, there's no one else to motivate you but you. There's no boss that's going to say, hey, you weren't in at 7 when you're supposed to be in at 7. You didn't log in at 6:30 when you said you would or whatever. Like and I've done very well at self-motivating myself, but it's very hard.
Yeah.
Very, very hard. So yeah, that completely didn't answer your question. So I apologize.
No, it actually did. It actually answered it perfectly because I think it's seldomly just structured and every day is different and you don't always know. And I try to have, I have a to-do list every day that these are the things that I have to do today. These are the things that I have to do this week. And even with that, sometimes you come in and get punched in the mouth and now we have to adapt. That's just kind of what it's like.
And you know what? I haven't found something that works, if I'm going to be completely honest, with my task to-do list. I have my agency management system to-do list, right? I've got the CRM stuff that flows in there. I do well with kind of like getting in the morning, whether it's at home or in the office, and saying, I'm going to write down everything that's got to be done today. But then like you said, you 10 o'clock, you get punched in the mouth with something, and next thing you know, it's 3:30 and nothing's been crossed off the list. And so, that's something definitely I need to get into the rhythm of figuring out, because I've tried the Excel sheet where I have and I got this from Sean. He does well with the red, green, and yellow columns, and like the green can get done whenever it gets done. It's not that important. Red needs to get done right now. Yellow needs to get done as soon as you can get to it. And I'm kind of all over the place with that, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
It's just because I can't just say I'm a producer and I'm just selling insurance today.
Yeah.
Because then the bank calls and says 4 months in, I got my bank account got hacked and they were taking money out of it and I had no idea. Now I was putting my head down and selling and not looking at my bank account as much as I should, but I looked at it every single day and they were taking $1 to $2 out every couple days, and they were putting it as an Apple charge, which I run on Apple, so I thought it was just like an app or something like that. So I didn't think much of it. I'm like, okay, $2 Apple, whatever. But there's an example of like, I remember that was a while ago, but I remember for like 2 days I was doing nothing but trying to figure that out, and down at the bank and going through statements. This is mine. This isn't. This is so like. That's where it can get into like, okay, tonight's gonna be a late night.
Yeah. So I think this kind of revolves into my last question of some things we don't realize when we become an owner is I want to say the easy part is the insurance piece. You're focusing on growing, maybe whatever, adding an employee, whatever it is. But I don't think you realize you spend a lot of time going east-west when all you want to do is go north-south.
Yeah.
Whether it's dealing with a carrier, that'll bank fraud will make you go east-west real quick. But there are so many things that knock us offline.
Yeah. How about just technology? like you have a problem with getting a rate out of a certain carrier, and that carrier is going to be the best, but you have to get the rate, but the underwriter is not available. No one else can help you, this and that. And it's like, man, I'm just trying to sell the policies and get it done. But you have all these things that, one of the things that Sean and I talk about a lot is like, you gotta force yourself to just enjoy the process. And like, when I say I'm a very visual person, like I've got stuff all over the place. I got trust the process back here. I've got things because it's like, okay, this is just, you've got to get through this and you got to enjoy it. And I think when you look at that and when you turn your mindset that way, you can enjoy it. Like I can't wait to, hopefully I'm in a different place in 10 years. Let's hope. If not, Brad, fly here to Utica and have a conversation with me. Okay. But I hope I am. And I can't wait to just kind of look back and remember the late nights of working on my front porch where my home office is, getting it done. And like, those are the memories. And that's with like the Scratch Agency podcast with Sean and I. Like, it's just so cool that we're just documenting our journey, know, and like being able to just say, hey, this is all part of it. And then you talk about the mentorship piece that we've talked about a lot, or just being around like-minded people, and you can see what that next step looks like. And you're trying to get to that next step, and then you get to that next step and you say, Sean and I talked about it on the last podcast, but it's like, instead of being like, oh my gosh, this day, this and that, like, stop and think, I'm where I wanted to be a month ago. I'm where I wanted to be 6 months ago. I dreamed of this day to own my own agency and sit here and have my own brand and have all these things. So stop complaining about a small carrier issue that's been bugging you for the last 3.5 minutes and understand where you're at.
Yeah. Jessica Holder, who I had on my podcast fairly recently, Jessica Holder and Keenan Rice own Eclipse Insurance out of DuQuoin, Illinois, put it best that I don't want to bludgeon how she said it, but essentially they both were had good paying jobs before they left and went independent. And she basically said, I would rather, be eating ramen noodles and drinking Mountain Dew for dinner, or essentially being poor and being a part of my own plan
than somebody else's,
than to make good money and be in someone else's plan.
You know what my favorite quote is? Never be limited by other people's limited imaginations.
Yeah.
So many people, when starting a scratch agency, are going to tell you, oh, don't, it's too risky. It's too risky, Steve. Wait till your wedding. Wait till your wedding's over. Wait till this. Wait till whatever. Are you sure you want to do it? And especially you had all the family stuff that I kind of dealt with of doing that, and the legacy and all of that. And like, if you believe you can do it, why not you? So like, you talk about the mentorship piece a lot, or we have, but at the same time, like, your own narrative, what you're capable of, what you can do, so take these little pieces of the mentors or the friends that you talk to, or whatever. But at the end of the day, if you can bet on yourself and do it, why not you?
Yeah. Well, I believe that when you get to 5 years or whatever that number is, you're going to look back and go, I don't even remember, things are going to be so different. I don't even remember how difficult it was, but I know it was a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's going to be so worth it.
But remember, Brad, if not, you've got to come here to Utica and just wake me up a little bit and say, hey, I'm going to hire you as a producer. Everything's going to be fine. And then we'll be just good.
I think something to keep in mind is it is working. It's a struggle, but it is working. You are going in the right direction and it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
I know it.
Yeah,
I know it.
And again, it's just like, all right, look where I was 6 months ago. I'm better. I'm in a better position than I was 6 months ago. I'm in a better position than I was a year ago. Like, take it, be patient.
Yeah.
Which is crazy for me to say because I'm the most impatient person you'll ever meet. But that's definitely the name of the game here.
Hey, I'm going to go ahead and close this thing out. Great conversation as I expected. Thank you very much for joining us again. Congratulations again on your first year. Can't wait to circle back after year 2 and hear where you're at.
I appreciate it.
Everyone else, thank you for listening to another episode of the Agents to Owners podcast. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brad.